Hey guys, we are just starting off a series called This or That today for middle schoolers, and I'm so excited that you are joining us in life groups today because I believe this evening is going to be really fun for you all. So by this point in your middle school careers, you've probably been taught a little bit about different measuring systems. In Europe, the standard measuring system is called the metric system. So there, people use things like grams, meters, and liters to measure distance, weight, and more. In the United States, we measure distance or height with inches, feet, and miles, and use things like teaspoons, tablespoons, and ounces for other measurements. Now, while we may have different standards for measuring things like how much flour we should put in the cake that we're making or how far it is to our best friend's house, there's one standard of measurement that all people use, whether they realize it or not. And that is the issue of comparison. You've heard that word before, right? Comparison is simply when we measure something about ourselves against something about someone else. We take this about ourselves and measure it against that about someone else. So you think this pair of sneakers that you have is awesome until you see the pair that the kid on your life group has. So you think this grade you got on your paper is pretty good until you hear about that grade your best friend got. You think this guy you're dating is pretty cute until you see that guy your best friend is dating. You see what I mean? Comparison is the way that we measure this in our lives against that in someone else's life. And it affects more of our lives than we probably even realize. But here's the thing about comparison. It can lead us to believe things that just aren't true, things about ourselves and others. When we compare ourselves to others, we can start to believe their lives are better than ours in some way because they have so many followers on Instagram, or they made the game-winning shot, or they got to take that girl to the school dance, or they have more friends than we can even dream of having. Their lives are pretty much perfect to you. They have everything they could ever want, everything that we want. And because of that, we assume their lives are amazing, even though we may know that it's not true because nobody's life is actually perfect. But the comparison still leaves us feeling like our this will never measure up to their that. And when that happens, well, for some of us, the comparison leads to disappointment. We're disappointed that we don't have what they have, and we wonder why they got to have the cool new house or the starting spot on the team or the happy family, and we think, why not me? And the more we compare, the more disappointment we are with, the more disappointed that we are with what's in front of us. And others of us, we get frustrated. We don't think that it's fair. We don't get it, and don't we deserve to have the cool stuff or the big friend group or the part in the play? And the fact that someone else has what we want, what we think that we deserve, well, it just doesn't seem fair. And that makes us mad. Or maybe for you, the feeling of comparison brings into your life is its hopelessness. Not only do you see something in someone else's life that you want, but you feel like you'll never have it, and you just feel hopeless. No matter what you do or how hard you try, you'll never be able to get where they are or have what they have, and that makes you feel hopeless. Or maybe in a different circumstance, comparison motivates you. Instead of giving up, you decide to try harder, to push faster, to do whatever you have to do to get to where they are. And while motivation and hard work aren't bad things, they can be unhealthy when comparison is the reason behind them. Maybe when you compare yourself to others, you actually feel really good about yourself. You might even think that you're better than someone else, that you're more deserving of what you have than they are anyway. And you might look down on others because you feel like your life looks pretty good in comparison to theirs. And regardless of how comparison makes you feel about yourself or others, here's the thing that's true. It never really takes you anywhere. Because as soon as you reach the thing that you want, as soon as you go from your this to their that, you find something else to compare. It's never enough. The cycle never ends, and you end up struggling with those same feelings of disappointment, frustration, hopelessness, and more, just all over again. So there has to be a better way. And luckily for us, there is actually a way that doesn't leave us stuck in the cycle of comparison, and it can be found in the Bible. And the passage that we're going to look at today was written by a guy named Paul. Paul was a leader in the spread of the Christian faith, and he often wrote letters to encourage believers in churches in different areas. In the letter that we're going to look at today, Paul addressed the issues born out of comparison to a group of church members in a city called Corinth. So here's what he said in 2 Corinthians 10:12. Oh, don't worry, we wouldn't dare say that we are as wonderful as those other men who tell you how important they are, but they are only comparing themselves with each other, using themselves as the standard of measurement. How ignorant! So even though Paul was specifically talking about some false teachers who were bragging about their spirituality, the same truth applies to us today. Basically, Paul was saying, listen, comparing yourselves to other people stinks. It's not smart. It's not wise. It's not helpful. So let's not do it. Okay? Why? Well, because I think what Paul wanted us to know was that when we compare ourselves to each other, we're using the wrong measurement. When we hold our real life up to someone else's life on social media, when we compare the way that our family looks over the way another person's family looks, when we look at what we have in comparison to what someone else has, we'll always end up on the losing end. And that's because we're looking in the wrong place. And I know this is true not only because of the way comparison makes us feel, but because of something else that Paul said in this very same letter. Take a look at the 2 Corinthians 10, verse 18. When people commend or compliment and praise themselves, it doesn't count for much. The important thing is for the Lord to commend them. So it's not about how we measure up in comparison to other people. It's not about how our this stands in comparison to their that. As Paul said, that doesn't count for much. But what does count is this: how God sees us. That is our standard. The place that we can look to see how we measure up. And the good news is this: God doesn't compare you to others. So how do I know? Because of Jesus. We can look at the way that Jesus treated people while he was here on this earth as proof of how God sees us today. Jesus didn't rank the people around him from best to worst. He didn't compare one single person to his own perfection. Instead, he turned the whole system upside down, basing the way that he sees all people on one thing and one thing only: God's love. You see, God isn't using the people around you as some sort of measuring stick to determine your worth or value. Instead, he is simply looking at you through his eyes. He's seeing your life through his love. And that's a place you will always measure up. So since this is true, since God doesn't compare you to others, then what can we do to stop comparing ourselves? There's just one more truth I want to share with you that I think can help. It's some wisdom from Proverbs 4:23. And it says, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. So comparison starts in our hearts. It starts because something in us feels unhappy with this in our lives when we see it compared to that in someone else's. So if we want to avoid that feeling, we have to stop it where it starts, our hearts. As this proverb says, we have to guard our hearts. So here are some ways that you can guard your heart. The first one is to pay attention to your feelings. Notice the way that your mood or outlook changes when you start to compare yourself to someone else. Do you feel disappointed, frustrated, angry, anxious? Those feelings may be clues that you're heading down the path of comparison. They're a signal that you need to guard your heart. The second one is find out what's fueling it. What are you looking at, thinking about, or doing when you start to feel those things? What's fueling your negative feelings of comparison? Is it a post on social media? A TV show that you're watching? A circumstance in your life that you wish was different? If it's something in your control, take a step away from it. Close the app, turn off the TV, take a break from that friend group for a day or so. Take a step to guard your heart from the things that cause you to compare. And if it's something that you can't control, talk to someone about it. Maybe you're unhappy with something about your home life, or have a friend that you're jealous of, or you wish you'd gotten to the top spot on your team. Things like that can cause you to compare. Your life group leader is a great person to help you identify steps that you can take to change and guard your heart in those areas. And then the third one, celebrate what you do have. Instead of filling your heart with comparison, fill it with acknowledgement of the things that you do have, the things that you're thankful for, the things that you like about yourself and your life. Again, the way that God sees you is the best place to start. Make a list of the ways that He sees you. Send an encouraging text to someone that you appreciate, or write down all of the things that you're grateful for in your life. When you're tempted to compare, fill that space in your heart with gratitude. Fill it with something that reminds you of the truth that God doesn't compare you to others. So if you're sitting there thinking that you're the only one struggling with comparing yourself to others, it's not true. Every single one of us struggles with comparison in different areas of our lives. I do it. I know others around you who are sitting there do it. And the good thing is that we don't have to struggle alone. One of the reasons why we have life groups is to give you a place to talk about these things and become more aware of them. So I hope that you can do that today. So let me pray for you, and then you can go off into your questions for the night. So Father, I just thank you so much for this group that we have today, and I just pray that if any of them are feeling like they're comparing themselves to others, maybe even a best friend or a close friend, that they just don't feel like they live up to, God, I pray that they can understand that they need to look at themselves through your eyes. And God, I just pray that you flood them with great emotions, just knowing that they are loved by you and that they are special and they are chosen by you. They are a masterpiece, God. So I pray that we can have some great discussions tonight in life group. Give the life group leaders wisdom on how to respond to questions and other things that come up. We just give everything to you tonight, Lord, and pray this in your name. Amen. Have a great life group, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.